Hello, my name is Jazz, or V, you can call me whatever you want, and welcome to another video. Today we will be talking about the books I put on my TBR for 2026, and yeah, that's it, that's the video. So I'll be talking about my reading challenge that I will do next year. I have an overarching huge reading challenge. Then we'll talk about the books I'm looking forward to be released in 2026. And then finally, I will have 12 books that I will add onto my yearly TBR, which I will have in my journal, in my reading journal. So yeah, I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe, to like the video, and to turn on the notification bell. And let's get right into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is my reading challenge. So I have multiple reading challenges. I usually do kind of an around the world challenge or a language challenge. But for 2026, it's already been a while that I've decided that I will do that. I'm really excited to do it. I am planning on reading the entire work of Octavia E. Butler. Yay! Who is Octavia E. Butler? Octavia E. Butler is, or was, an author from the US, an African-American author, who mainly wrote sci-fi and had a huge impact on Afrofuturism. And I've already read 3 books of her, or 3 works of hers. I've read Kindred, I've read Bloodchild, and I've read A Few Rules for Predicting the Future. And then I also read one work about her, which is called A Handful of Earth, A Handful of Sky. And I already decided, after reading Bloodchild, I think, I decided that I want to do this because the authors known in Bloodchild, I was like, I wish this person was my best friend because Octavia is just so cool. And then I Googled her and realized, well, she can't be my best friend because she has passed away 20 years ago. Anyways, my plan is to read all of her works, and I quickly want to go through what this entails. So Octavia E. Butler's work has 3 series, and each series have multiple books that are connected to each other. So the first series is the Patternmaster series, which has 4 books. Then the second series is the Xenogenesis series, or the Lilith's Brood series, which has 3 books. And finally, the Parable series, which has 2 books, which was the final, or the last series that she wrote. And it would have 3 books, but she never got to finish the final book of the series. So I'll be reading those 3 series, or I'm planning on reading it. That's, of course, we'll see what will happen. Then she has 2 standalone novels. One of them is Fledgling, and the other one is Kindred. I've already read Kindred, so I'm just going to be reading Fledgling. Fledgling was the final book she released before she passed away, so it's the newest work. And then finally, she has 2 short story collections. The first one is Bloodchild and Other Stories. I've only read Bloodchild of these other stories, so I still have to read all the other stories. And the second short story collection was released after her death, so posthumously, and it is called Unexpected Stories, and it has another 2 short stories that I plan on reading. Additionally to reading the books Octavia wrote, I also want to read the books that are about her. There are 2 main works. One of them I already read, which is A Handful of Earth and A Handful of Sky by Lynell. And then the second one is called Starchild by Zoboi. So yeah, those 2 I also want to read. And then there's also a bunch of interviews that she gave and other think pieces that were written on her, or analyses of some of her work, which I'm also interested in reading, but most of those are essays, so it's not like an actual book with a whole collection. So that's kind of like the big thing I will be doing next year is reading all of Octavia E. Butler's works, and I'm really, really excited. So she mainly wrote sci-fi, and I'm just very interested in her as a person as well. I felt the things that I learned about her in A Handful of Earth and A Handful of Sky were so interesting, and I think she's a fascinating person. And all the books I read from her so far, like the stories I read, were all 5 stars for me, so I really hope it will continue. And I hear so many good things about her, and I genuinely truly believe that next year Parable will be everywhere. Like, I think the Parable series will be everywhere, so yeah. As for starting, I think I will start with the Parable series because I already have both of the books as ebooks, so that will be probably what I'm gonna start with in January. And it's about 12 books all in all, so it would be 1 book a month, but who knows, maybe I'll just read it all in the first few months of the year and then take a long break from sci-fi. So that's like my overarching reading challenge that I set for myself. It would be so much fun if you join me, so if you also want to read some of Octavia E. Butler's works, I will every month tell you which one I'm going to be reading. Let's read together. You can choose the one you like, and then you can just join me. It would be a lot of fun to just read along with each other. Now, the second part of this video is about the books that will be released in 2026 that I'm looking forward to. Now, this is a very short part because I am not really a new release chaser, so I don't have a whole list of books that I'm looking forward to. There's not a lot of authors I track as well. If I'm looking forward to a new release, it is mainly because it's an author I really like and I want to read more of, or it's part of a series. There's one single book I'm excited for in 2025 so far. I mean, there might be more, but that's the one I know about. And it will be released in May, and it is the second book of a series. And of course, it's the second book of the Amina al-Sarafi series by S.A. Chakraborty, which is called A Tapestry of Fate, and I'm very excited. So the Amina al-Sarafi series, I read it this year, I think, beginning of this year. Did I? Yeah. No, I read it last year. 1.5 years ago, I read Amina al-Sarafi, so The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi, and I've thought about this story so often. It was so much fun. I love pirate stories, and I really love our protagonist as well. And I'm really excited to see how this continues. And I've seen the cover, I think like 2-3 weeks ago. The author posted the cover of this book, and it looks so good. Oh my god, I'm like, maybe I need to get them physically, like the first one and the second one, since I read it as an ebook. But yeah, very beautiful. That's the only new release I'm looking forward to in 2026. And now finally we get to my actual 2026 TBR. Now I just want to say, disclaimer, I made a TBR list for 2025, and the idea behind my TBR list is that I choose 12 books which I would like to read, but they're not mandatory that I read them. It's not a challenge for myself. It's just that if I don't know what to read next, I can consult this list and hopefully find a book that I'm looking forward to. Now in 2025, out of these 12 books, I read 5 of them, and which 5 they are, I will show you when I show you my reading journal flip through in the new year, because there's a whole page dedicated to the TBR and you will see which ones I've actually read. And I chose new 12 books. Some of them were already on my list last year, but I also chose a bunch of new ones. And now for last year, the book choices were extremely specific. They all had like history behind them, why I chose them. This year, it's a bit more loose. It's just 12 books that I think I would like to read. Now, the first category is books that were on the list for 2025 and that are also making the list for 2026 because I didn't get to read them yet. So the first one that made the list again because I didn't read it is called I Had the Same Dream Again by Yoru Sumino. Now, this book is on the list because I'm a big 80s fan, and Mingi is like the one 80s member who reads and recommends books, and he recommended this book multiple times, and I thought I really want to read it. I'm really curious about this book. It's by a Japanese author. And then the second book that made it that made it back, I have to say, is Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. Now this book, I already heard a bunch of positive things about it in 2024. It's the same again in 2025. It's a standalone fantasy. I love fantasy, but I'm in too many series, so reading a standalone fantasy could really be something for me. And so this book made it back onto the list because I really think I have to read it. Now, the second category is books that are from my shelf, because obviously I own a lot of books, or not that many, but I own quite a bit of books that I have not read yet, and obviously one goal should also be to reduce my physical TBR, and so I chose a few books from my shelves that I want to make a priority in 2026. So this is the stack of books that I decided I want to read, or I want to put on my TBR for 2026. So let me quickly get through them and tell you all about those books. So the first book is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. My camera doesn't like white books, so I'm just gonna put it back down. So The Vegetarian by Han Kang, obviously Nobel Prize winner book, and I've read Human Acts this year, and Human Acts has stayed with me like in my head. This book very much impacted me, and I'm very curious to read more of her works, and I have The Vegetarian, so this one is making the list. Next up, I have Gabrielle by Georges Sand. I've talked about this book in one of my vlogs because I got it from the thrift store, and it's a queer book, or in the widest sense, it's a French classic. It's a queer French classic, if we so wanna, and it's a play, and I'm really excited to read this one. I really want to read this one. I might just like also add it to my Pride TBR if I haven't read it until then, but we will see. Then next up is another book from the thrift store. It's a Miss Merkel novel that I got from the thrift store. Yeah, what can I say? Miss Merkel crime books. It sounds fun, okay? If I think of Angela Merkel solving crimes, it just sounds funny. I feel I want to read those. I personally am not really a crime person, so I just want to challenge myself a bit as well by adding a crime book to my TBR. Who knows? Maybe I will actually love crime. We will see, but yeah, this one also is on my TBR. Then next up is a chunky one. Oh, this one here. So this is the latest book of Christelle Dabos, which is the author of the Mirror Visitor series. I really loved her books. Unfortunately, this book is not yet released in English, and I have not found any information on English translation. In French, it is called Nous, so us, Nous, and I have the German translation of it because it has been translated to German, which the name is Die Spur der Vertrauten, so if you read in German, you can look this one up. I hope it'll be great. It's also kind of crimey, I heard, but it's also like a sci-fi-ish world, and I'm really interested. And I really liked the Mirror Visitor series. That's like highly rated series by me. So I have high hopes for this author as well, because she really has a way of writing worlds that is extremely captivating to me. And it's a really thick book, so we'll see how this will go. And then finally, I have A Right to Be Hostile by Aaron McGruder, which is the Boondocks book. It's the Boondocks comics printed, and well, I don't have to say much about this. It's a graphic novel. It's on my shelves, and I will read this. I think this one's like clear. I will read it in 2026. I just have to make time. Nice. So those are the 5 books from my shelves. And now finally, I still have a few books that I chose from my never-ending TBR is what I call it. At the moment, there's like over 100 books on it. It's basically my wish list of books I would like to buy or like to have. I use my wish list in my favorite book shopping page for that I just add the books I'm interested in there, and I chose a bunch from there. So let me go through those. The first one is called The Door on the Sea by Caskey Russell. Caskey Russell is an indigenous person from the Tlingit tribe in Alaska. Now, I generally want to read more books of marginalized groups because I think, why are we only reading white people? It's like, let's be for real. And it's a fantasy book. The protagonist is indigenous as well, so I'm really excited to read some own voices books and fantasy, because for me, often when we read books from marginalized people, they tend to be nonfiction or they tend to be historical fiction, and it's a lot about like the real life, and I really want to see how the oppression that we faced is translated into fantasy as well, how these themes can be explored there. So I'm really excited to read an own voices book that is fantasy. Then the second one is a German book. There's no English translation. It was shortlisted for the German Book Prize, and it's called Am Samstag gehen die Mädchen in den Wald und jagen Sachen in die Luft. What a long title. It translates to On Saturdays, the girls go into the forest and blow things up. And it's a book about climate justice and queer youth. So it's on one hand about forest fires and about the decline of the bird population as well. And on the other hand, it's a love story between 2 girls in their teens. So I'm really excited. And I'm mainly reading it because I want to know if it might be suitable to read in a school class for like 14, 15-year-olds. So yeah, I have high hopes for it because it was shortlisted as well, so it's a book from a prize, right? Then next up is a book I've had on my TBR for a while, and it's called How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin. I've wanted to read an N.K. Jemisin book for a while, okay? But the thing is, with authors who have like a big series that they are famous for, I often kind of shy away from this. I don't know why. And I tend to read other works. And now this book is a collection of short stories by her. I like to do that because it helps me get used to their writing style. It helps me explore them as an author before I dive into a big series of them. But I did the same with Octavia, right? I started with Bloodchild and with a standalone before I'm getting into the series. So I'm trying to do the same with N.K. Jemisin, just because there's less pressure on me if I'm reading a short story collection versus a 3-book series that has been awarded with every single prize imaginable. Then the next book is a classic. I want to read The Lost Continent by Charles John Cutcliffe Wright Hine. That's a long name. And yeah, it's a classic. It's a mythological retelling. I wanted to read one, and I wanted to read an old one. So it's a retelling of Atlantis, which is the lost continent, and it's a classic. So I'm adding it to the list because it has been on my TBR, and I feel like it's a good one to add. And then finally, I'm adding a nonfiction book. I always try to add a nonfiction book, even if I end up not reading it. Now, this one I'm mainly adding so I don't forget that it exists and it intrigued me. And it is called Natural Magic, Emily Dickinson, Charles Darwin, and the Dawn of Modern Science. And it's by René Bergland, or Bergland. I don't know if the name is German. This book, I saw it in the Netherlands when I was traveling, and the cover really spoke to me. And I also really like the fact that the author chose author of fiction mainly, and then an author of non-fiction, like a scientist. When I was reading what the book was about in the store, it says that she's exploring science in Emily Dickinson and magic in Charles Darwin's work. And I really thought that was very intriguing to me. I liked how we kind of flip it around, look at people who are living in the same, or who lived in the same era of time, and how their works might have not been that different. So yeah, it's a very expensive book, so I'll have to see if I can afford it, but it's extremely pretty. Like, the cover is so nice. The cover was what drew me to it. Usually I'm not a cover person, but this cover is really nice. And yeah, that's the final book on the list. We are at the end of my TBR list. So again, I'm not planning on reading all 12 books that I added, but they are there to help me as like a guide if I don't know what to read next. We have reached the end of this video. Let me know in the comments what books or what book is on your TBR for 2026. Is one of my books one you want to read, or have you read one of mine already? And then I will say again, like, subscribe, and click the notification bell down below. Leave a comment. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye!